Hey everybody, welcome to episode 42 of FoundersGyan and thanks for tuning in. In case you're tuning into the show for the first time, we feature the inspiring story of a startup and the founders behind it. This week our guest on the show is Sandip Yuwanati, one of the founders of TalentBridge. That is talentbridge.co.in. TalentBridge is a cloud-based assessment and hiring platform and they have a suite of products to enable the same. We had a great time in recording this show and there are some great tips and gyan on this show. So I hope you enjoy the show as much as we did in producing it. Do check out the show notes over at foundersgyan.com/EP42 to find out about all the resources that we talk about on the show. Alright, fasten your seatbelts and let's get started. Sundeep, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to meet you and be chatting with you today. Sundeep is the co-founder of talentbridge.co.in. This is a platform that offers cloud-hosted and mobility-delivered innovative business solutions in the domain of assessments, hiring, training, and development. We'll get into the details of this a little later in the show. An IIM alumni, Sundeep has had a few roles in various companies before starting TalentBridge 7 years ago. Sundeep, great to meet you and thanks a lot for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your knowledge, wisdom and time with our listeners. Thank you for agreeing to be on the show.
Thank you.
So Sundeep, let's talk about your journey up until TalentBridge. Did I get everything right? Can you fill in the blanks if I missed out anything?
I think I am a mechanical engineer from REC Nagpur and then went to IIM Lucknow. From the campus I got into Asian Paints, in fact worked here in Bangalore itself. Post that I moved to Deloitte, Hyderabad, and I also worked with a real estate company before starting TalentBridge.
Okay, great. So explain to us a little in detail about the concept of TalentBridge and how did you come up with this idea in the first place?
Fair enough. So if I have to say that how did we come up with this idea, I mean, there cannot be a definitive answer because the founders of TalentBridge had come from the places and the locations where we felt that there was a specific need of guidance, some kind of mentoring as far as the employability was concerned. So I would say that the initial idea of TalentBridge was focused on employability skills building, and that's how we started. All of us moved to a place called Bhilai, which is in Chhattisgarh, and we spent almost 2.5 years building a story about it. So that's how the TalentBridge came into the being. So we opened up centers in places like Bhilai, Raipur, and we had these mentoring centers where students would come, and we had created our in-house course on employability, which would help students to build that employability quotient so that they are ready for the jobs in corporate.
Okay, and so can you also explain to us a little bit more about what TalentBridge as a company does?
Yeah. So as I said, that the journey of TalentBridge has started from being a company which was focused on creating students who are employable in the corporates, but the evolution has been gradual because when we started it, we were under the impression that if you create a course or if you offer an employability training to the students, the logical culmination of that training will be the jobs to the students. But eventually that is not the case, is what we realized, that the standard way of thinking from the student side or from the educational institutions is not that. Though, I mean, from my own experience, I can say that though everybody wants to get into the colleges, education institutions, but the end objective is the job. So eventually people aren't, if I have to say very bluntly, aren't interested in learning, but what they want is a job. So you can't say to somebody that you take this training and find out your own job. But if you say that I can give you a job, then do XYZ thing, then the likelihood is very high that they will do those XYZ thing. So given the aspirational natures of Indian society, that business model had its own challenges. And by the time we were working in places like Delhi and Raipur and other places, we figured out that we need to scale it up because it was a brick and mortar model, going to colleges, meeting students, etc., etc. So we started at the back end building an online platform which would digitize the content which we had created. So that's how the basis or the foundation for creating an online platform came into the existence. And then we built a platform to first digitize the content, and gradually we scaled up that platform to have the assessments also, which was essentially to check whatever was learned has desirable learning outcome or not.
Okay, great. Now, for our budding founders listening out there, can you tell us how to come up with a good idea?
Well, I would say there isn't. You can't say that the idea is good or bad to begin with. Idea is an idea. The only thing you can say that you have an idea and you want to see that the idea takes a shape. Whether it's a good idea or bad idea is probably something which we will discover on the road.
Right. Yeah. So let me rephrase the question. How do we come up with an idea? Because just the other day, I'll just give you an example. Just the other day, I was talking to a technical person, and he was saying that his company hosts a lot of hackathons or whatever you call it. And he said the problem is we technical people know how to do things, but we don't have an idea as to what to do, So let's look at it from that point of view. What would you give as an advice?
Idea is definitely important, but idea on its own would not serve any purpose unless and until somebody know how to execute that idea in a manner that it creates that value. You will always meet the idea people. You go anywhere, you will find idea people, and everybody will have an idea. But the idea would come into the being when somebody has know-how, when somebody has a courage, or somebody has willingness to bring all the resources in place to execute that idea. That is where I see a value coming out of the idea. Otherwise, idea on its own is like having say a great book of wisdom at your home, but you really not able to utilize it.
Okay, excellent. That brings me to my next question. So let's say you have an idea. Okay, it could be a good idea or a bad idea. It doesn't matter. So, but let's say people are convinced, listening founder or would-be founder out there is convinced that this is a good idea and the market needs it. So what are like some high-level steps you can do to bring your idea into a reality? What are the steps that a person needs?
I think if you're looking at this particular space, any entrepreneurs who want to create value for its customers, what is important is that whatever we want to create has to have some value for the customers and ecosystem, whatever fractional value that might be. If my idea is able to create that value when I put into that shape, then I would suggest is the right way or right way to look at it, that particular idea, and start building things around it. We might not be able to create 100x value to begin with, but even if I'm able to create x out of that, then I would say that you should hit the road straight away.
Okay, so as long as you can, so your advice is as long as you can create a value out of the idea, just go ahead and try to execute it.
Yes, because the other things which will come into the play, whether your idea is sustainable, whether your idea is scalable, whether your idea caters to X kind of people, can it go to Y kind of people, is a matter of time, and those questions will come. But to begin with, can I say that if I create a product out of it or a service out of it, will it serve the desirable purpose, which is to create value for somebody?
Okay. Great. Now, we all hear about founders sacrificing family time to make their ventures a success. Can you tell us a bit more about your own family and how you managed to balance business and family?
Well, I was lucky that I had no specific family obligations. Luckily, everybody at home was fairly reassured, including my siblings and all that. We'll figure out our way. So there was no family pressure or there was no family obligations per se in terms of what needs to be done. So I don't think I had any family pressure. But yeah, if you ask about my co-founder, yes, he had a family, he had a wife, he had kids. And it wasn't very easy to balance it out, everything in the initial days where he had to travel half of a month, leaving his kids, wife behind, everything. A lot of other things were there. So definitely if you're married, you have family, it's a tough task. It's a tight rope to walk. I think that is definitely the case.
So what would you say would be your advice to people?
It's very important that if you have a family, say you're married, it's very important that your spouse is understanding. Yeah, she or he is in position to understand what you're trying to do, because this is the thing which needs tremendous patience. And when it comes to money, everything else goes for the toss. So it's very important that your spouse is or has to be supportive. If she does not believe in your passion, or he does not believe in your passion, then it becomes a very difficult game. Because it is not a straight line. There could be really tough times. There could be really tough times on monetary front. There could be really difficult times on other times. When you're trying to soak in the pressures on the work front, you can't go back and offload that to your family. If you need to relieve it somewhere, so you need a family who is really supportive enough. Not only the spouses and the other side, but also probably your parents, your brothers, sisters, anybody else.
Okay.
So if you have a family which is supportive, probably the journey is little easier.
Okay, excellent. Now let's talk about daily rituals. Is there a morning or a daily ritual that you follow? Can you share it with myself and our listeners?
I really don't think so. It's a very standard things. There's nothing something specific or special I do. It's just a mental note of things to be done in the day, and probably before you close off your laptop, just a mental note of things to be done next day. I think that is what I do. I don't typically carry things at home unless I have to do something from home, which
Right.
is always there. But I wouldn't say that I would follow a certain specific ritual in terms of how the day should be spent.
Right. Not even a personal one, like say exercising or
That is there, yeah.
Yeah. So
probably.
sorry, I should have explained the question a little bit more. So it could be a personal one, like maybe working out every day, or
I think it is extremely important to be in the shape, and I can tell you from a personal experience, it's extremely important. Whether you want to run for 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, or whether you want to do some yoga, I would personally recommend that every entrepreneur should have some routine in terms of physical activity. Otherwise, it could be really killing. Because on one side you are adding up, you're soaking in a lot of pressures from work front, and if your physical fitness is not in place, then it could have a cascading effect. Because mental health as well as physical health are important. We don't have to hit gym every day, but what is required is probably some kind of physical activity. It could be just 10-15 minutes yoga, or probably say half an hour morning walk. Anything is fine, but it's recommended that there is some physical routine.
Okay, great. Now you started TalentBridge with Gaurav Shukla, right?
Yes.
So can you tell us about how you know him or how you met him, and what advice would you give would-be founders with regards to co-founders? Is it important? Is it must-have? So what would you say?
So Gaurav and me are not direct friends. We met through someone. And if I have to say about Gaurav, we started as a business partner But I think we evolved as friends. I mean, I did not know him before we started TalentBridge. But I think over a period of time, we evolved as good friends. And the good thing about us has been that we had skill sets and abilities which were very complementary to each other. I mean, Gaurav is somebody who's very outgoing. He's very warm. He likes meeting people, and plus he is little elder to me. So it was easier for us to complement that. And we built a very solid trust. We respect each other's idea. We also started respecting our differences, which are very important in a team, because if not able to express your opinions freely and confront each other's ideas, freely, then we are not evolving as a team. So even though he's elder to me, we were able to debate, discuss things very passionately, but in a manner that it remains dispassionate. So the outcome is important, which has to be the interest of the company. So we evolved as a friend, and I think the best thing for us is that we complement each other in terms of our abilities.
And what advice would you give for founders in terms of co-founders?
See, I think it's very important that whomsoever you choose, you hit the right note with them. I mean, there has to be some connect among the people, whether you share a common value system or whether you share common interest. Something has to be there which somehow connects you. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult to operate in silos. I mean, a lot of understanding will be built over a period of time, but there has to be some underlying current which says that, okay, here is my partner and I respect him for what he is. And in turn also expectation that, or probably understanding that he would also respect for what you are. Then it could be a good starting point and to build that.
And how important is it to have a co-founder?
Extremely important. I mean, you can start, but what is required is that you need an alter ego. I mean, what if I think that, okay, this direction A is good, but I have not validated it. I have not bounced it back. I need somebody to question that thing very brutally. That why this? If I'm making certain decisions or I'm planning certain thing, then I need somebody to very brutally question that. That is the only way I can figure it out what is the right thing to do. So having a co-founder is, I think, definitely suggested, if not beginning, but at some point of time, you should ask or you should look for a co-founder or somebody who can question your decisions.
Okay, great. So can you tell us something about yourself that is not commonly known?
Very difficult to say, even I don't know.
Something maybe even your friends or people in your company would be surprised to hear, okay, Sundeep does this. Or
not really. I mean, unless and until I find out, okay, this is the thing which I did not know and probably I need to share. I mean, there isn't
no problem.
Any specific thing.
We'll move on. What is the best advice somebody has given you, or alternatively best advice you have heard and you try to follow in your own business and life?
No, I think there are a lot of people, I wouldn't say they specifically gave that advice, but when people share their experiences, when they share their understanding of certain things, there are ways you can pick out certain things. I mean, there are many things, but whatever is coming to my mind, that's probably is the best thing which I think I was discussing or talking to someone, and this point came up about how somebody can look at life, if they should look at, is that if they follow these three principles. The first is that you should be prudent enough to understand or know the things which you cannot change. If you know that these are the things, so you should be prudent enough to accept that these things cannot be changed. That is the first thing. Second, you should have courage, or you should be courageous enough to change the thing which must be changed and can be changed for good. That's the second thing. And third thing, which is extremely important and very critical, is that you should be wise enough to know the difference between the things which can be changed and the things which cannot be changed. So I think if there's, it sounds a little philosophical, but at every crossroad, every individual, whether you are running a company or you're working somewhere or you do whatever you're doing, you will come to a crossroad where certain decisions has to be taken. And essentially, this is what we as an individual would do in life, right? You come to a point, you take decisions, you act onto it. So this is what I feel was extremely relevant. I just remember it back of my mind.
Okay, great advice. Thanks for sharing that with us. Now, can you tell us about your worst entrepreneurial moment? I'm sure you've had many in 7 years.
Many.
So maybe pick up one of the low points and how did you turn it around? And most importantly, whether you turned it around or not, the lessons you learned from that experience.
See, I wouldn't specifically single out any incidents, but this would be a typical journey of any entrepreneur. The cash flow situations is always there. You plan certain things and the life, it wouldn't go that way. But what was important for us that we stayed course. The another important thing which I would say is that we will have to, as entrepreneurs, will have to figure out a way to rightly judge people. Either you misjudge people or you judge in a manner which is not appropriate. So a lot of time there are instances where we have been cheated because we trusted, because we gave them a chance. So those are the instances probably, and some of these instances were very damaging in terms of even existence of the company. But luckily we were prudent enough to built in certain checks and balances, and we could sail through those. But essentially it's very important that somebody in the team is skeptical about the people whom you're interacting with, because not everybody whom you're meeting would be your well-wisher. And there could be any reasons. You don't have to have any specific reason for that. So it's very important that we build the ability to understand people as early as possible and understand their intent while we interacting, whether it's a business relationship or even the personal relationship.
Okay, great. If you like the show, do follow us on Facebook and Twitter. The link is www.facebook.com/FoundersGyan and twitter.com/FoundersGyan. Both these provide you daily tips and articles as well as resources to help and inspire your startup. There are multiple tips per day. Some examples of these tips would be articles on the latest startups, growth hacking tips, how do you build team for startups, how to get funding, etc. So don't forget facebook.com/FoundersGyan and twitter.com/FoundersGyan. Now, what's the future that you envision for your company?
See, as I said, that though it's a long journey, but essentially we have evolved from X to Y. Now, the business model which is in place currently has proven that we are creating a value for which there are takers. There are people who are willing to pay for it. Now we've also demonstrated that there is a sizable traction to it. So if you say now we have reached a level of X, so we've been breaking even since quite some time now. So if we reached the level X, now we need to look at is how is it that we move this X to say 10X in next 1 year or next 18 months or probably 2 years, and how can we quickly create that 10X kind of value, not for the company but also for the customers and all those things. So those are the areas which where the team is contemplating, which definitely needs a lot of time, money, and also investment in terms of augmenting technology, making it really a world-class product which will appeal not only the Indian customers but also the global scale. So that is something which we envision next 12 to 18 months. And of course there is also underlying thought in terms of what could be the n plus level 1? What if we reach say 10x? So how about 100x? So those are the things which occupies our mind. But luckily we've got a good team to support those kind of plans on board. Yeah.
Okay, so good luck with the execution of that and for the growth to the next level. Now, we just have a couple more questions. TalentBridge is about 7 years old, and hindsight is always 2020, of course, and also a lot has changed over the years.
Yes.
But if you were to start this again today, would you do anything different? Is there one thing that you could pick out that you could do different?
Of course, it'll be. I'll be foolish if I said no, nothing has changed. Definitely. What we were, I as an individual or even Gaurav as an individual were there 7 years ago. We have evolved. I don't have to say that we have become better, but I'm sure we have evolved to a level that if we have to do same thing again, we will 100% do it better. 100% will do it. And there are a lot of things which we've learned over a period of time. There's no harm in saying that.
Right.
The experience, understanding which we had 7 years ago, if we compare today, we have completely different level of understanding, right?
Right. So your answer to that is there are tons of things that you could.
There are tons of things, and there are tons of things which can be done better. There's no.
Okay.
I don't have any inhibition of accepting that.
But there's not one specific thing or anything like that.
Not really. Everything which we have done can be done better.
Okay, great. Now, can you recommend any books or resources for our budding entrepreneurs?
What kind of books? If you're looking at those typical business, because I personally don't read them.
Okay. No recommendations from your side?
I think what is important is that we should read whatever is the interest area.
Doesn't matter whether it's a business book or...
Absolutely.
Right. So you could recommend anything, any fiction or whatever you...
No, read. I read a lot of philosophy.
Right.
I read a lot of politics. I read biographies, autobiographies.
So maybe you could just name one good philosophical book, one good biographies. Like
recently I was reading a biography on Patel by Rajmohan Gandhi. Extremely nice book to read. I don't have to borrow certain things. As I said, that certain things are not necessarily to be borrowed from the business books. Though you can read also the Steve Jobs stuff. It's very nice to go through the experiences. But what is important is that we should keep reading, and the different areas which we read, somewhere that reading culminates, and it reflects into the kind of thought process we build or the kind of decisions also we make eventually.
Okay, so your advice is reading is important, but read whatever you like. Whatever you like. Okay, doesn't matter, be fiction also.
Doesn't matter, but it's important that you are well read.
Okay, great.
You want to read economics, whatever, The Economist or Economic Times, any novels and all this thing. But essentially, when you read, you're trying to create some kind of thought process while you read certain content, which is important.
Okay, excellent. So, I just have one final question. But before that, how can our listeners get in touch with you? Are you active on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook? Do you have a blog? What's the best way to reach out? I
am active on all these 3-4 things. I think LinkedIn is the best way. I write blogs also. Not in recent very.
Blog?
It's www.bhau.speaks.
Can you spell that out?
BHAU speaks. I think it's WordPress blog.
Okay.
So it's WordPress.
Yeah, we will link that up on the show notes. And people can reach out to you via LinkedIn.
I think LinkedIn is the best thing because it's easier for me to respond on that.
Okay, excellent. We'll link up. We'll link up. We'll put the links to the LinkedIn as well as your blog on the show notes. And I just have one final question. But before I move on to that, I just want to take the time to acknowledge you and thank you for sharing your knowledge to myself and our listeners. I'm also very grateful to the value you're adding into the world by means of your startup, and I also wish you continued luck in expanding it further. So with that, we'll move on to the final question. So if there is one Gyan, only one Gyan that you could give our would-be founders, what would that be?
I think, see, a lot of people get into this. I mean, they want to become entrepreneurs or join startups or any space which you can say related to startup. A lot of people intend to get into this with a glamour quotient. But it's extremely important that there is no glamour quotient to it the moment you are into it. So if somebody wants to get into this because it sounds glamorous, this is not the place to be in. My personal experience says that it's a lot of hard work into it, and it need certain seriousness about it. So if you're really serious about doing something, whatever, as a startup founder or joining a startup, then you have to have an intent correct. But if you're just coming it because it sounds glamorous, I think you should reconsider.
Okay. Excellent advice, Sundeep. Thank you so much. It was a real pleasure chatting with you and wish you continued success in your venture.
Thank you, Ram.
There you have it, folks. Another inspiring startup and the story behind the founder of the same. I hope you found it useful and inspiring. Do check out the show notes over at foundersgyan.com/EP42 and please share it with your friends and colleagues if you think they'll find it useful. There are nifty share icons on the show notes page, and you can also email them the show notes page, that is foundersgyan.com/EP42. All comments and criticism is most welcome and can be posted on the same page. I'll be back next week with yet another great startup and the story of its founder. Till then, I hope this show has inspired you to take action on your own startup today. See you next week and have a great rest of the week ahead.